Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Because a fortune teller said that if I married into the Grant family, they would enjoy a century of peace. I was given the right to choose my husband. I ended up marrying the eldest of the 3 Grant brothers, Andrew. But on our wedding night, he actually handed me over to his 2 younger brothers to let them humiliate me. They took turns lashing out at me, cursing me over and over. I had taken the place of the Grant family's adopted daughter, Emily. Emily is the one who should be the true lady of this family. We only recognize her, they said. Only then did I realize that all 3 brothers were in love with her. As my consciousness began to fade, I saw the head of the Grant family rush in to save me. I died in his arms. Right before my death, I heard him crying and apologizing. The Grant family's trap was set by your uncle. If there's a next life, stay far away from the Grants. And then I really did have another life. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day when the head of the Grant family came to visit my home. Summer, would you be willing to come with me to the Grant residence? Jason Grant asked. It's okay if you say no. This is just what fate has laid out for us. Jason's features were firm and mature, around 40 years old, though he looked like he was barely in his 30s. In my memories from the previous life, this same man had cried like a child. Time had jumped back 6 months. Back then, the Grant family had sought me out under the guidance of a spiritual master. According to them, if I refused to marry into the family, they would face utter disaster. In my past life, I had agreed without hesitation out of goodwill. But now, with the memory of my tragic death playing in my mind, I gave a bitter smile, not knowing what to say. Jason let out a sigh when he saw me hesitating. I was being too forward, he said. It's understandable that you wouldn't want this. Just pretend I never came. I wish you all the best. He stood up to leave, but I grabbed his wrist. Uncle, I said. I'll marry into the Grant family, but I don't want to build any relationships with your 3 sons. Jason froze for 2 seconds, then tried to reason with me. You can't take emotions lightly. You should seriously consider them. Choosing a partner is a lifelong decision. I shook my head. I've already made up my mind. If I'm going to marry into the Grants, I'll marry the best man in the family. I want to marry you, Jason Grant, the patriarch of the Grant family. He was 40 years old but looked like he was in his early 30s. 10 years ago, he lost his wife in an accident and never remarried. After everything I went through in my past life, I could see clearly that only he was a decent man, 10 times better than his sons. He was stunned by my bold declaration. Don't joke like that. I'm too old for you. I raised a finger and pressed it against his lips. I won't marry anyone else. The decision's yours. After a moment of internal struggle, Jason finally agreed. For the sake of the family's future, he swore a solemn oath. If this is the only choice, I, Jason Grant, will never betray you. Let this be my vow. The inheritance of the Grant family will belong to you, Summer. I will marry you right away. If I break this promise, may I be struck by lightning and live as a beast. I was satisfied with his response, but I added one more condition. Before we get married, you can't tell anyone about our engagement. Your 3 sons owe me a great debt from my last life. I want them to repay it double. 2 days later, I stepped into the Grant family estate. Andrew Grant stood there with a cigar between his fingers, smoke curling in the air as he raised an eyebrow at me. Malice flickered in his eyes, completely different from the gentle expression he had when we first met in my previous life. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I was jolted awake by the thick smell of smoke. When I opened my eyes, I saw a large hole burned into the curtains and flames crawling across the carpet toward the bed. In my past life, there had been a fire just like this. I had been so terrified I could do nothing but clutch my pillow and cry. In the end, it was Jason who rushed in and carried me out, his arms badly burned in the process. But this time I was ready. I grabbed the fire extinguisher I had prepared in advance and put out the flames. When the rest of the Grant family came rushing in, a flicker of surprise flashed across Andrew's face. He hadn't expected me to escape the fire so quickly. Deliberately leaning in close, he lowered his voice and said, You got lucky this time, but Summer, if you dare choose me as your husband, I swear I'll kill you. The only woman I'll ever acknowledge as the true Mrs. Grant is Emily. His reaction was entirely different from what he'd shown in my past life. Back then, he had masked himself well, gentle and kind. That's why I fell for it. That's why I married him. And now I just wanted to smash that smug face of his into the floor. The sharp crack of my slap echoed through the hall, shocking everyone around us. I sneered. Andrew Grant, if you've got something to say, say it. What's with the arson? Not afraid of wetting the bed at night? Though honestly, maybe you should wet the bed more often to get a better look at yourself. Who the hell told you I wanted to marry you? Take that little manipulative skank, Vivian of yours, and get as far away from me as possible. You dared hit me. Andrew barked, stunned, his tone full of disbelief, like I was some servant girl who'd forgotten her place. Just then a girl came running down the stairs, Brooke Grant. She pointed at me and screamed, "You filthy bumpkin! How dare you act out in the Grant house? My brother's the eldest son of the family. Who do you think you are putting your hands on him?" I looked at them coldly, then turned to the other two brothers standing nearby. What about you two? Got anything to say? Sure enough, Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling. Summer, can't we talk things out calmly? You just moved in and already started hitting people. If Dad finds out. I cut her off. I worried if Dad finds out, he'll probably praise me for hitting him. All right, next I raised an eyebrow at the youngest Nathan Grant. He hesitated, then tried to play mediator. Since we're all family now, maybe we should try to get along. Summer, could you apologize to my brother? An apology? I let out a sharp laugh. Why should I? So it's okay for you guys to set my room on fire but not for me to hit someone? Andrew, did you really think I was just some soft target you could push around? Listen up, whoever opens their mouth next. I'll pick them as my husband and make their life a living hell with daily abuse. Go ahead, come on, say something. The four of them froze, stunned. Just then we heard hurried footsteps. Jason Grant appeared. His shirt buttoned wrong and a faint red bruise on his wrist from being bumped. What happened? He asked. The door to her room was locked from the outside. I had to find the key. That's why it took me so long. It was obvious Andrew had done it. His expression turned awkward as I stared straight at him. Guilty. He quickly turned to Jason and whined. Dad, she probably set the fire herself. We just rushed in to help put it out. But she turned around and attacked me. She's crazy. How could a woman like that be worthy of marrying into the Grant family? Jason looked at him, then at me. Without giving me a chance to respond, he lifted his hand and slapped Andrew hard across the face. You think it's up to you to decide who's worthy of this family? He said coldly. I know better than anyone what kind of people my sons are. If anything like this ever happens again, all of you can get the hell out of this house. Andrew clutched his cheek, eyes wide with disbelief. I seized the moment and said calmly, Uncle, it's all right. Kids who act out just need a little discipline. From now on, I'll take over their mother's job and teach them some manners. That line landed like a bomb in the ears of all four grandchildren, blatant provocation. But to Jason, since I was going to be his wife, the remark was perfectly acceptable. He nodded gently. Thank you, Summer. You've been through a lot. I'll have someone move you to another room so you can rest. The looks those four gave me could have sliced me into pieces, but I wasn't worried. This was just the beginning. The next morning, my secret ally, Daisy, came to see me quietly. She was an old servant in the estate, kind to me in my past life, though she was eventually kicked out by Emily under some made-up excuse. This time I made sure to win her over. As soon as I arrived, I had Jason double her salary and promised to arrange a job for her son. Miss Summer, she said nervously, wringing her hands. Miss Emily and the three young masters were talking in the study. They're planning to find someone to kidnap you. Her voice trailed off, trembling, unable to finish the sentence. But I already understood what was going on. Just like in my past life, they wanted to ruin my reputation so I'd be unworthy of marrying into the Grant family. The only difference was that last time they waited until the wedding night. This time they acted early. I gave a cold laugh, a sharp glint flashing in my eyes. Whose idea was it? It was Miss Emily. Daisy said, trembling. She also said she'd record everything and send it to the media. That way you'd be tainted. The corner of my mouth curled into a smile that confirmed it. Everything that happened in my past life had been orchestrated by Emily too, but in this life I was the one writing the script. In my previous life, I'd been blind. I really thought of Emily as my little sister. She deliberately slit the pocket of my bathrobe, so when I delivered a file to Andrew, the robe slipped and exposed me. She poured perfume into my shoes, which made my feet itch uncontrollably during a formal Grant family banquet, and I ended up scratching them in public after kicking off my heels. I had chalked it all up to childish pranks, but right before the wedding, she cut open my wedding dress and clumsily stitched it back together with uneven thread. I didn't notice until I stepped on stage and felt the loose seams under the fabric, but by then the ceremony had already started, and I had no time to change. Who would have thought the sweet little girl clinging to my arm, calling me Summer, was actually the one plotting to drag me into hell? She even recruited her friends as bridesmaids. When I walked across the stage toward Andrew, one of them stepped on my gown on purpose. The unstable dress burst open on the spot in front of every guest. I was exposed. Within the hour, the video went viral across the entire internet. The camera angle was perfect, exactly from where Emily had been standing. By the time I saw through her schemes, it was too late. That same night, the 3 Grant brothers tied me to the bed. Emily was there too. She was more brutal than any of them, leaning in close to my ear to whisper, "Sissy Summer, the reason they hate you isn't because they love me more. It's because I keep telling them what a filthy you are. Enjoy it. The Grant family is home to me, but to you it'll always be hell." That night I pleaded. I explained. I begged them to listen, but none of them did. To them, Emily was still their sweet little sister, and I was just a gold digging who wanted their family's wealth. Now, having come back from death and hearing that Emily had come up with another plan to have me kidnapped, I suddenly realized even their so-called loyalty to her was fake. Even after hearing something so vicious from her, they still stood by her side. So this time I wouldn't show mercy to anyone. The next day, Emily came to find me with a bright smile. "Summer, the boys were out of line yesterday. I'm really sorry on their behalf. How about we go check out that new KTV that just opened? Just us girls. I'll bring the boys too." I returned her smile even sweeter than hers. "Of course, little sis. How could I say no when you ask?" I let her lead me into the private van she'd arranged. She handed me a can of lemon tea. Rugged, I knew that the moment I arrived at KTV, I'd lose consciousness. Emily had already hired thugs to be there waiting to humiliate me. Then the 3 brothers would conveniently arrive to rescue me and paint me as some promiscuous girl. Even though I knew everything she planned, I still drank it in front of her. My body reacted quickly. "Summer, are you okay?" she asked with fake concern, pretending to help me into the private room to lie down. From the corner of my eye, I saw 2 men in black loitering outside the door. Emily leaned in and whispered, "Don't kill her, just get enough footage. Make sure the camera captures her face clearly. Oh, and you guys do have STDs, right? As long as it's not too serious, I'm not paying. Otherwise." Then she turned to me with a twisted expression and hissed, "Summer Shun, you think you can marry into the Grant family? You think you can be the lady of the house? I've lived with the Grants since I was 7. Who the hell are you?" Right before I completely blacked out, an image of Jason's sharp, rugged face flashed through my mind. This time I was going to make sure he saw clearly what kind of disgusting creature he'd been raising as a daughter. I had already hidden my phone in my sleeve the moment she gave me the lemon tea. I'd called Jason Grant and left the line open, so every vile word she said about filming STDs, her demands, all of it reached Jason's ears loud and clear. Jason dropped everything and rushed over the moment he heard. Just as the 2 thugs started to tear open my shirt, the door to the private room was kicked wide open. Jason stood there, a baseball bat in hand, his eyes blazing red behind his glasses. Without a word, he slammed the bat into the back of the thug closest to me. The crack of breaking bones echoed through the room, followed by the man's scream. Blood sprayed as chaos erupted. The second thug tried to run. Jason slammed his leg into the back of the thug's knee, sending him crashing to the floor with a loud thud. "If you so much as touch her, I'll make sure you wish you were never born," he growled. The gentle, refined Jason Grant, who had spent 20 years as a model of restraint, had in that moment become the fierce young man he used to be. He stripped off his blazer, laid it over me, and carried me out in his arms. Emily had just come back from the restroom when she saw the 2 thugs scrambling out, barely holding themselves upright. Hands on her hips, she shouted. Useless trash. Can't even handle one simple task. Her words cut off when she saw Jason carrying me in his arms. Dad, why are you here? She stammered, her eyes darting to me, trying to check if I'd been violated, but all she saw was Jason's icy glare. On your knees at the ancestral hall until sunrise, he said without looking at her. When I woke up at the hospital, Jason was sitting by my bedside, peeling an apple. The moment he saw my eyes open, he slammed the apple into the dish and snapped. Do you have no regard for your life? What if I'd arrived just a minute late? What if those animals, why didn't you tell me Emily was bullying you? His voice was hoarse as if he'd cried. I tugged gently at his sleeve and said with a soft pout, Okay. I'm sorry I didn't tell you because I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. That made him freeze. He turned his face away, Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard. It took him a long moment before he rasped. I'm sorry. Uncle was wrong. It won't happen again. Summer, please trust me. I do, I whispered with a nod. In my past life, he had been the only one in the Grant family who ever truly looked after me, but back then I loved the wrong person. Suddenly, the hospital room door burst open, and the 3 Grant brothers barged in. Nathan still had his headphones around his neck, clearly just logged out of a game. Andrew noticed the 4 in my hand, and his eyes flickered, but what came out of his mouth was a plea. Dad, Emily's never suffered in her life. The ancestral hall is freezing. How can she kneel there all night? Did she suffer? Jason interrupted, his voice dangerously soft. Those 3 words sent all 3 of them into a cold sweat. Then Jason laughed, his eyes red with fury. So all that education you got, what was it for? You think the books you read growing up were just for show? When Emily plotted the kidnapping, did she ever consider whether Summer would suffer? Dad, Emily's just... Andrew tried to defend her, but one glance from Jason shut him up. The youngest, Nathan, was the dumbest. He stepped forward and slammed his hand on the windowsill. So what if Emily did something wrong? She's still part of this family. Are you saying someone like her should kneel all night for someone like Summer? This boy, who once pretended to be my friend in my past life, now showed his true vile face. Jason stood up, face dark, and kicked Nathan in the knee, forcing him to the ground. You think the Grant family business exists so you can abuse people? Then he turned to me, his expression softening. His next words sounded like he was asking for my approval. Summer, I think it's about time we make your engagement public. He pulled out a document from his briefcase. Let's get one thing clear, he said, his voice firm. I've already decided to transfer the Grant family shares into Summer's name effective immediately. She will choose the future heir of this family. No matter what you think, it's already done. The papers are here. You've lost your mind, Dylan. The middle brother was the first to explode. The Grant legacy should be passed down to your sons. Why give it to an outsider? Andrew's face went pitch black, like he'd been struck by lightning. At most, I'd agree to giving some shares to Emily, but Summer? Not a chance. Nathan was the most dramatic, his voice cracking from shouting. We're your real sons. Emily's your daughter. You raised her for over 10 years. But Summer, she's just some powerless girl with no background. What the hell can she offer the Grant family? Jason towered over them all, taller than any of his sons. He stared down at them, with a gaze that felt like it had been frozen in ice. Your mother grabbed my hand on her deathbed and begged me to raise you to be men of character. If she saw the things you've done, she'd climb out of her grave just to slap the hell out of each of you. His eyes locked onto Andrew. You set fire to Summer's room. Did it ever occur to you that she could have died? I am the head of the Grant family. I have the right to decide who inherits it, and all of you should be ashamed, Jason said, his voice rising with emotion. In 20 years, none of you have proven that you're capable of carrying the Grant family. He turned toward Andrew, his tone sharpening. Andrew, in high school you scared off 3 tutors. Every single one of them said. You hid razor blades in your textbooks and threatened them. Dylan, in college you cornered a female classmate under her dorm and tried to throw acid on her. Thankfully it didn't cause permanent damage, though I had to spend $8 million to shut that down. And Nathan, just last year in Macau you gambled away $300 million. I was the one who paid off your debt. He swept his gaze across the 3 of them. Which one of you is capable of carrying this family forward? Tell me. The brothers' faces turned paler by the second, but Andrew still wasn't convinced. Everyone makes mistakes when they're young. What rich kid hasn't stepped out of line a little? Honestly, we've already been more well-behaved than most. Jason shook his head in disappointment. And that's exactly why you're not fit to manage money. Summer is the complete opposite of you three. She never leaned on anyone, and yet she turned out better than all of you combined. The room fell into dead silence. The three Grant brothers now realized Jason's decision was final. No argument would change it. Seeing that no one had more to say, Jason continued calmly. The wedding will be held in 1 month. Summer is marrying. Just as he was about to name himself, Andrew suddenly dropped to his knees. I know I was wrong, he said. I'm willing to marry Summer. Everything before was immature. I shouldn't have followed Emily's lead. Summer, I promise from now on I'll treat you sincerely. Please marry me. The other two quickly caught on. Whoever married me would automatically be in line to inherit the Grant family, whether or not the marriage lasted. It didn't matter. What mattered was getting control of the estate first. Dylan pushed Andrew aside and knelt down on one knee. Summer, I've liked you for a long time. I was just misled by Emily, that's all. Then came Nathan, the most ridiculous of the three. God knows how, but he actually pulled out a velvet ring box from his pocket, revealing a massive diamond ring. This was passed down from my grandmother to her future granddaughter-in-law. Look at the cut, it's just like your eyes. It's so beautiful. How about we fly to the Maldives tomorrow for wedding photos? My grandma was ahead of her time, right? I raised an eyebrow. Where do you even get that? Is it from a bargain site? The three of them were scrambling, shouting over each other like vendors in a street market, frantically trying to outbid one another for my hand. It was laughable. The entire Grant family estate was mine. Now what could they offer me that I couldn't buy myself? They sure didn't think of offering anything when they held me down on that bed and called me a. But now they were lining up to become the very thing they once insulted. I rolled my eyes and finally cut them off. All right, how about this? You want to marry me? Then whichever one of you can make Emily kneel and sincerely apologize to me, I'll marry. The brothers instantly froze. Getting Emily to kneel and beg for forgiveness? That was worse than death for them. But the inheritance was on the line. They couldn't walk away that easily. Before they could react, Jason suddenly bent down, scooped me up into his arms and strode toward the door. I let out a small yelp and instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck. What the hell was this man doing? He always seemed so serious, but the way he carried me made my whole body feel soft. Andrew frowned and tried to block him, but Jason sidestepped effortlessly. Dad, what are you doing? Andrew demanded. Jason snapped. I'm going to make Emily apologize. His tone was harsh enough to scare anyone, but the arm he wrapped around my waist was gentle, careful not to let me feel uncomfortable for even a second. I buried my face in his chest, secretly laughing to myself. So that's what this was. He was jealous. He didn't want to see me getting lured away by his 3 sons. Just yesterday, he'd sworn I could still choose for myself whom to marry, but the moment he saw his sons fighting over me like a bunch of bargain hunters in a grocery aisle, he lost his patience. I couldn't hold back anymore. I burst into laughter. The 3 brothers were left exchanging awkward looks behind us, unwilling to give up the inheritance, so they scrambled to follow close behind. Jason carried me straight to the family's black SUV, setting me gently in the back seat. His fingers tapped rhythmically on the leather upholstery as the car pulled away. Halfway down the road, he suddenly looked down at me. If they really do manage to get Emily to kneel, would you actually marry one of them? I grinned, clearly enjoying his flustered tone. Why not? Didn't you say I had the final say? His expression darkened. No, that's not happening. Then he pulled me into his chest and held me there, not giving me a chance to wriggle away. Careful, you'll wrinkle your suit, I teased. Inside I was laughing like crazy, but on the surface I just nodded sweetly. Okay then, Uncle Jason, who do you think I should marry? Just as Jason was about to speak, the brothers' car caught up to us. Nathan clung to the rolled-down window and shouted, Sissy Summer, wait for us. We're going to make Emily apologize right now. Dylan shot him a glare. What do you mean we? Speak for yourself. Andrew leaned out the window and made a heart gesture at me. Summer, as long as you agree to marry me, I'll make sure. Emily smashes her head bloody, kneeling for forgiveness. Jason faced dark as thunder rolled. He rolled the car window up with a snap. I trembled in his arms, laughing uncontrollably at the ancestral hall. Emily had already been kneeling for quite a while. Her knees were raw and bleeding, her bangs soaked with sweat and plastered to her forehead. When she saw us walk in, her eyes lit up and she immediately crawled toward Andrew. Andrew, you're finally here. My knees hurt so bad, please help me, begged Dad. Okay, Andrew didn't even hesitate. He slapped her across the face so hard she fell sideways onto the stone floor. Clutching her cheek in disbelief, she whimpered. Andrew, you hit me. Apologize to her, Andrew said coldly. Kneel down and give her 3 loud cows. Say, Sister Summer, I was wrong. Emily looked to the other 2 brothers for help, only to see Dylan already unbuckling his leather belt. Didn't you hear? Apologize. While you're at it, make sure to say it was Brother Dylan who made you do it. Nathan squatted down, gripped her chin, and smiled in that sweet but sinister way. Aren't you great at playing the poor little princess? Go ahead, put on a show for Sister Summer. Make it good and I'll still spoil you. Oh, and remember to say it was Brother Nathan who told you to apologize. It was like watching some kind of absurd over-the-top competition as Dylan raised his belt menacingly. Emily panicked and looked to Jason, crying, Dad, help me. They've gone crazy. But Jason only stared at her. Apologize to Summer or keep kneeling for the rest of the month. That broke her. With no one left to shield her, not even the brothers who used to pamper her endlessly, Emily finally broke down in fear. Trembling, she crawled to my feet and knocked her head against the stone 3 times. Sister Summer, I was wrong. Please forgive me. The moment her forehead hit the ground for the 3rd time, the 3 grand brothers lunged forward like rabid dogs fighting over scraps. I told you to apologize. Andrew shouted. Summer, did you hear that? It was because of me. Dylan yelled. It was my belt that scared her into doing it. Liar. I grabbed her chin. Look, her drool is still on my fingers. Nathan declared, holding up his hand like it was some kind of trophy. At that point, I truly wanted to ask them, isn't all that the same damn nonsense? But I kept it in, afraid Jason might not appreciate my taste in humor. He didn't always get the chaos of young people. Emily was being yanked around between them. Finally realizing what was going on, all 3 brothers wanted to marry me, and whichever one got her to apologize first won the prize. She didn't know why, but the humiliation crushed her. Why, she screamed inside. Why should I, the treasured princess of the Grant family, the girl raised like royalty, lose to some random girl like Summer Shun? Emily shoved them all away and glared at me like she wanted to skin me alive. You're loving this, aren't you? Watching them fight over you? Is that what makes you happy? Makes me apologize? That's who you'll marry? Then fine, I only apologize because of Jason. If you've got any guts, marry him instead. Then she let out a manic laugh. You're all clowns, 3 simps and 1 gold digger who wants to marry an old man. The brothers snapped, 20 years of emotional bonds shattered in a second. They didn't lose control because of the insult, but because she threatened their place in the inheritance. Shut that filthy mouth. Andrew yelled. You want me to toss you outside for the dogs? You called my future wife a whore. Dylan snarled. You're the real piece of trash here. The 3 of them surrounded her, fists flying. I leaned into Jason's arms and gave a cold smirk. Look at that, this was their so-called pure white moonlight from my past life, the girl they'd all sworn to protect, and now for the sake of profit, they were ready to beat their own sister bloody. Jason gently patted the back of my hand. Summer, he murmured softly, do you really want to marry an old man like me? There was vulnerability in his voice. I knew where it came from. That age gap between us had always been his insecurity. I looked up at him, drew out my words with a smile. Well, what else would I want? I hooked my fingers around his tie, gently tugging him closer to my chest. Everyone gets old, I said softly. When I'm old, I won't have the confidence to still look as young as you do right now. There's a 20-year gap between us. You're twice my age, but in 10 years it'll only be 1.6 times. In 20 or 30 years that gap will keep shrinking. And when our hair turns white, who'll even notice the difference? Jason let out a low chuckle, clearly moved by my warmth and sincerity. I had made up my mind. I was going to give him the last piece of reassurance he needed, something that would completely put his fears to rest. I clapped my hands toward the still wrestling group of fools behind us. "Everyone quiet down," I said. "I have something to say." The room stilled. Since Emily was so eager to announce it for me, I'll make it official. The man I've chosen to marry is Jason Grant. I turned to the brothers and added with a smile, "All right, you three can come line up to call me Mom now." The three Grant brothers froze for a second, then burst into laughter. Dylan sneered, "Summer, come on, who's going to believe you'd say something like that? Seriously, stop messing around." Nathan added quickly, "Just pick one of us and let's get married already." Andrew let out a mocking snort. "Nice move playing hard to get. Too bad it doesn't work on us." As I looked at their smug, entitled expressions, my heart filled with cold amusement. In the last life they treated me like a toy. Now they thought they could still play me for a fool. If they didn't believe me, I'd show them something they couldn't ignore. I rose up on my toes, wrapped both arms around Jason's neck and kissed him. His eyes widened in surprise. That kiss carried the resentment of my past life, the resolve of this one, and the trust I'd placed in him. At first he was stunned. Then he slowly closed his eyes and pulled me into his arms, holding me tight as he kissed me back. The room fell completely silent. That kiss was steady and sure. A public declaration to everyone. I had chosen him. Jason Grant, Jason Andrew Nathan, even Emily. Every single one of them stood frozen, eyes wide. I pulled back from Jason and looked up at him, my eyes full of anticipation. Come on, I thought, kiss me back again. Forget age, forget status. Right now I was just a girl longing to be loved. Jason looked down at me, his gaze so tender it felt like it could melt. He stroked my hair and said with rare reverence, "Summer, I will marry you with the grandest wedding this family has ever seen. I'll make sure everyone knows that you are the woman Jason Grant loves most in this world." Then he lowered his head and kissed me again. This time there was no hesitation, no holding back. Just love, pure unwavering love. And right in the middle of that breathtaking moment, Andrew suddenly shouted, "Enough!" His voice cut through the air like a blade. "Summer, are you reborn or something?" Both Jason and I froze, turning to look at him. Dylan and Nathan also caught on, eyes snapping toward their brother in alarm. Andrew hadn't finished his sentence, but we all understood what he meant. The atmosphere in the ancestral hall turned eerie in an instant. Dylan and Nathan exchanged a look, their faces pale. Emily, meanwhile, trembled where she knelt, her eyes full of fear. So they had all been reborn after my death in the previous life. The entire Grant family had spiraled into chaos. The three brothers had turned on one another because of Emily. Bitter rivalries, deep mistrust, and backstabbing. As they fought for the family inheritance, they began plotting against Jason too. In the end, Jason died tragically, and the brothers destroyed each other in the process. None of them met a peaceful end. Jason now looked at his sons with deep sorrow in his eyes, disappointment etched into every line of his face. "You all remember everything from before," he said quietly. Andrew gave a bitter laugh. "Yeah, we remember. Don't you, Dad? You were reborn too, weren't you? If you weren't reborn, how could you suddenly be so nice to Summer?" Andrew sneered. "So, Summer, you think marrying my dad means you can take over the Grant family? Keep dreaming. The Grant legacy should stay with the Grant bloodline. It doesn't matter which of us brothers it is. The name stays Grant." The three Grant brothers exchanged glances, a flicker of cruelty flashing through their eyes. Slowly, they stepped toward Jason and me, twisted grins spreading across their faces. Behind them, Emily shrieked, "Kill them! If they're gone, the Grant family is still ours." I looked at the four people who had once destroyed me. There was no fear in my heart, only pure cold disgust and burning anger. Jason pushed me behind him, his eyes icy as he stared down his own sons. "You really want to go down this path? You think this life will be just like the last? Here you could do whatever you wanted. Let me make one thing clear. So long as I'm alive, I won't let you lay a single finger on Summer." Andrew smirked with contempt. "Save your breath, old man. You died at our hands last time too. This time you and that can die together." Honestly, the Grant siblings really were hopeless idiots. The moment Andrew finished his threat, I nearly burst out laughing. Did they really think Jason, the head of the Grant family, was standing here alone and unprepared on his own property? Did they actually plan to take us down with their bare hands? Jason Grant, you old bastard. Do you seriously? Andrew didn't get to finish. The sound of dozens of footsteps echoed down the hallway. In the next second, more than 20 black-clad bodyguards flooded the ancestral hall, sealing it off completely. Even Auntie Wong from the kitchen arrived, casually holding a tray of freshly cut fruit. As she stood in the doorway looking around with a puzzled expression, she asked, "What's this setup supposed to be? Kind of edgy. Are we filming a gangster flick? Want me to slice up some watermelon for the shot?" Behind the bodyguards came 7 or 8 household staff. Daisy winked at me as she stepped forward, waving a feather duster like a weapon, aiming it squarely at Emily. "Let's see if this silk brat can handle a little sweep." Andrew swallowed hard, clearly rattled, but still he puffed up his chest and tried to sound threatening. "Do you know who I am? I'm the future head of the Grant family. When I take over, I'll triple everyone's salaries." The bodyguards remained dead silent, their faces expressionless. The staff, however, burst into giggles. Auntie One rolled her eyes. "Oh, give me a break. Ever since you threw my cat in the pool last month, I've been dying to slap you." I overheard Daisy chatting with Aunt Jang behind her. "Unbelievable. Do they really think being the head of the family is that easy?" Aunt Jang nodded. "Even my grandson has more self-awareness than these fools." The brothers' faces turned ghostly white, then flushed red with humiliation.
Furious, Andrew screamed, "Fine."
"Screw it. Let's go kill them." He charged forward, only to be tackled to the ground by 2 bodyguards before he could take 3 steps. His knees slammed into the stone floor, and he howled in pain. Dylan and Nathan were at least a bit smarter. They never ran at all. Both dropped to their knees immediately and started crying their eyes out. "Dad, we were wrong. We don't want to die. Please just let us live. We won't fight over the inheritance anymore, we swear. Just give us enough to live comfortably. We won't ask for anything else." Then came the most absurd part. Emily sashayed up to Jason, swaying her hips, and purred, "Daddy, I can marry you too. I'm younger than Summer, I'm prettier. I'm the one who suits you best." She actually reached out to touch Jason's face, but he slapped her hand away. Jason's voice was cold as steel. "I've already had people gather all the evidence of your crimes. Arson, kidnapping, intention, and ill harm." He pulled out a thick stack of documents and flung them to the ground. "This is more than enough to keep you all in prison for life. From this day forward, you are no longer members of the Grant family. The doors of this house are forever closed to you. Take them away." The bodyguard stepped forward immediately, dragging all 4 of them out. Emily screamed as she was pulled back. "Dad, I'm the daughter you raised for over 10 years. You can't do this to me." Jason didn't flinch. He watched them being taken away. His eyes filled not with anger but disappointment. Jason's eyes were filled with nothing but disappointment and disgust. After raising them for over a decade, what he got in return were a bunch of ungrateful wolves. But when he turned to look at me, all that coldness instantly melted into warmth. "Summer, no one will ever hurt you again," he said gently. In that moment, I felt an indescribable rush of relief. Whether the Grant family deserved to fall or not, one thing was certain. Its trash deserved to be taken out. A week later, Jason and I got married. And Jason, well, when he cut loose, he really went all in. At the wedding, he actually performed a trendy K-pop dance. The way he pulled it off had so much tension and flair. I genuinely worried a few times during those deep back bends that he might throw out his back, but nope, turns out his lower back is still stronger than a 20-year-old's. 3 months later, I found out I was pregnant. Jason pressed his ear to my belly and stayed like that for 10 whole minutes. When he finally looked up, his expression was so serious it felt like he was hearing divine whispers. I laughed so hard I nearly smacked him in the face with the pregnancy test. "Oh, it's only been a few days." His ears turned red. Without a word, he picked me up and gently placed me in bed, tucking the blanket around me like I was made of porcelain. "What do you want to eat?" he asked. "I've already asked the kitchen to prepare bird's nest soup, and that spicy noodle dish you mentioned last time. I'll send someone to get it now." "Oh, and wait." I pressed my hand to his mouth before he could turn into a one-man parenting podcast. Mr. Grant, this isn't your first time becoming a dad. Can you calm down, please? You're an old pro by now. He leaned down and kissed my forehead. That's exactly why I want to give all the tenderness I have left in this life to you and our baby. Honestly, when it comes to sweet talk, Jason Grant could go toe-to-toe with any lovesick 20-something. My life felt utterly perfect. As for those 4 mutts who once made my life a living hell, they were having quite the time in prison. Daisy's cousin worked as a prison guard, so she updated me daily with their latest adventures. Andrew had his steamed buns snatched by a cellmate during work detail in the prison factory. Dylan tried to fake illness by eating laundry detergent just to get sent to the infirmary. Nathan started a little side hustle doing other inmates' laundry in exchange for snacks but ended up getting caught and forced to scrub toilets for 3 days straight under the warden's watch. And the best one, Emily, she got paired up with a top dog inmate who beat her daily. Yet she still went around telling everyone she was the ace of the Grant family. Daisy could barely keep a straight face as she peeled apples for me. People who cling too hard to their delusions always go insane, she muttered, smirking. Jason came out of his study just then. Sunlight poured in from the window behind him, casting him in golden light. As I watched him standing there in the glow, I realized something. All the blood and tears I suffered in my past life, every wound, every scar, had all been dissolved by this single radiant light named Jason Grant.